Okay, oh god. Yeah, sorry folks. Kinda had... Oh, for fuck's sakes, where's the picture? Oh, there we go. Right. Yeah, sorry folks. Got some, real life stuff just before the stream and so on and so forth. So hopefully you won't, take it as a horrible thing and whatnot else. Just like literally bang on the door and so on and so forth. Yeah, right, you're here for the news and interesting things in Daily Dangerous. Oh boy, do I have news for you today. So, as the title of the stream already says, there are some interesting shenanigans going on, and once again, TheYamiks was right. TheYamiks is always correct, isn't he? Well, when it comes down to it, yeah. Coffee, yes. Coffee is needed for this sobering, interesting statements that developers have put forth. And I report to you, because guess what, folks? TheYamiks did a journalism. Kind of. Nylon, hey, thank you for the bits there on the Twitch side. Really appreciate it. Right, so I suppose we might as well just get on with it. Let me just put it in a cinematic mode so we can, you know, organize things. And I will pull up a Reddit post, because, you know, why not? So, Reddit post. Fleet carriers in beta. Oh, thank you again. Fleet carriers in beta will cost 5 billion credits, as we know, and developers will not provide you with extra credits. That is the title. Now, alright, so let me just read through this. So, after watching, just like many of you probably, watching the Frontier Development's stream, or rather the developer stream, because again, I try to separate the whole company from the dev team. Regardless, the dev team presented the fleet carriers, and in this particular segment, I got a worry that there might be something pretty bad coming. Now let me play the segment. Let me just put that there. The sound of the ship is kind of annoying, so give me a moment. There we go. Now there's that, so you can clearly hear what the developers said and what raised, to lightly put, a concern from yours truly. So let's see. So. Right, you see the thing, alright? So listen clearly, closely.
Yeah, so as I said just there, that we are going to be having 2 betas this year. Obviously last year we announced that we were going to try and have betas for all of our updates coming out, and this time for fleet carriers we're going to have 2. The first one will begin in April, and it will be for PC only, and then some time after that we're then going to be bringing out a second beta that will be for PC, PS4 and Xbox players. So we really need you guys to jump in. If you can't afford a fleet carrier, don't worry about it. We also need people to come in, test the game, and also test to be as guests on fleet carriers. It's just as important. We can't wait to see what you do.
Right there, he said that don't worry if you can't afford it. We need people coming in as guests and test that too. That day, when we were talking with Exegius and other creators in that big co-stream thing that we did, just reacting and Carolus, say thanks for subscribing there. Back then, I raised a massive concern that I had, and that was about exactly that statement in beta. Don't worry if you don't have credits to buy a fleet carrier. We need people to come and be guests as well. That statement concerned me, at the very least. And after actually this morning, after I woke up, did a couple of things, played a few games, I had this nagging feeling in my thought, back in my mind, that, well, developers might not give access to fleet carriers to, well, basically majority of the people who haven't just, you know, ground out enough credits as is already. So if you're entering beta and you don't have credits on your account that they or information on the account that they pulled like a week ago, because usually they just basically take a week old or from the last server tick information from your account and just port it in on the beta. If you didn't had money for Fleet Carrier then, well, you won't have money for the Fleet Carrier on beta. That was my concern. I was very hoping that wouldn't happen, right? I was very hopeful that it wouldn't happen, but I had my big concerns. And I had that thought back in my head, thinking the way he phrased these things, right? I decided to reach out to our community manager, Stefan here, and he was very expeditious and courteous enough to give answers to these things, and good on him. So at least that much can be done, so that's nice. And he answered with a couple of things that confirmed my suspicions. So, essentially, so I basically asked him, hello, I would require one piece of confirmation about beta. Will you, developers, provide players with funds to acquire fleet carriers for the beta? Essentially, making sure that everyone is able to pick up a fleet carrier and test it and give their feedbacks. Okay. And he answered with, hey TheYamiks, developers will not provide additional funds to players to purchase fleet carriers in beta. So whatever amount of cash you had about a week ago, that's what you're gonna get on your beta account. So for me, for example, I still have 1.6 billion on my account. So clearly, I won't be able to buy it. Well, free cash and technically total assets I have about 5 billion barely. But I'm not gonna sell my whole ship armada just to buy one fleet carrier, mind you. So that would be a stupid thing, right? So yeah, they basically confirmed that if you don't have money, well, you don't have money. That's simple. And of course, let's see, and of course, being TheYamiks, I asked for a little confirmation why they don't want to provide people with extra cash, right? So yes, you can, and the answer was, yes, you can say that the current plan is that fleet carriers will cost 5 billion in the beta, which again we expected, right? But this may change. So on a whim, if we whine enough, I guess they will change it. Maybe? Who knows? Regardless. We need people testing, owning, and being guests on fleet carrier. Well, yeah, clearly that is the intention of the beta. So they need us to test that stuff. The current plan is to have people who have funds to purchase them, to get them, like they would in a live game, so we can manage the feedback and bugs. Just because you can't own one doesn't mean you can't participate. Guests on fleet carriers are just as important as the owners for these tests. Okay. Let's dissect that, shall we? Right, so first things first, obviously they need us to test stuff, right? So they want both people owning them and joining them, being visitors and so on and so forth. All right. Now, what is more important? Making sure that the fleet carriers themselves don't completely fail when they exist in the worst case scenario, i.e. stress testing them, or making sure that the features on the fleet carrier work. Well, depending on whom you ask, one or the other will be their choice. Personally, I find beta to be a wonderful opportunity to test, well, in mass, giving everyone access in controlled environment, in a test environment, ability to get every fleet carrier and stress test the fuck out of their feature, making sure that there wouldn't be problems when people were to spam them in one place, rather than having suddenly, when the game kicks off something and everyone decides to use fleet carriers in one place, or just have 2 fleet carriers in one place, that they wouldn't crash or fail or just completely annihilate the servers. That, in my opinion, is a bit more important than making sure that one feature works. And of course, along the way, features will be tested regardless. See, let's say developers would say, okay, we give everyone a fleet carrier, go test them out en masse, stress our servers, make them crash. That's what we want, and that's gonna be great feedback for us to improve the servers, and of course the code, and of course everyone's gonna be able to give us the feedback so we can make the fleet carriers in general better. No, instead of that, developers are saying, well, if you're already rich enough, you're gonna be able to purchase one, and then plebs, that is about 90% of the plebs in the community, will be able to go and, maybe test them on the smaller scale that, that it's gonna be most of the people's experience regardless. And you could, you could normally test those fleet carriers by default. Even if you own one, and help us develop these things, test. Who cares about that? We need to restrict the access to them regardless. We don't want to stress test the stuff. Note 90%. Okay, 90% is my estimate, of course. So there's different values in search of it. Regardless, relatively dedicated people. Yes, they are relatively dedicated indeed. Now, this whole idea that basically, the thing is, okay, let's say, well, obviously developers know how many people have how much cash, right? So they can at least draw some comparisons, and they have found that there are enough players in game that have already enough credits to buy these things. Obviously, otherwise, this would be a stupid move. Because let's be honest, not everyone with 5 billion or more credits on their accounts will care to go on beta, now will they? So that means that only a percentage of the people who still play and still have that massive cash pile, only the percentage of those people will actually go on the server, beta server, and go and test these things. Okay, so there's percentage of this small percentage is going to participate. And then the rest of the people will just basically test the menial, small, little things that these owners of these ships actually have bought. And right, so essentially not, well, everything just everything goes down, and, well, yeah. I mean, I'm lost for words really right now. I try to be as eloquent as I can and all that stuff, and use vocabulary as much as I can. But this is just stunning. This is a stunning ineptitude. Essentially, hey, we don't want to provide our potential free, free testers who we don't need to pay for. Or pay to test these things. We're not going to provide these people with adequate tools to test things. Let that sink in. They will not provide adequate tools in order to fully test the feature that they are bringing out. As I've said before, if developers are intending... Okay, so here's the thing. The current plan is that those people who have funds will purchase them and get them like they would in a live game. If they want to test the live game, honestly, I think that would be a better idea for the beta too. Beta 1 should be a stress test, ironing out the major big issues, and the major big issues you can usually get by testing the fuck out of them, right? Okay, if developers are already scared that too many fleet carriers will crash the servers, this even in this way, it's a really idiotic way to limit the fleet carrier, well, existence. Because this is not limiting fleet carrier existence, right? You can say that per system we're gonna be putting a cap just for the beta period to have 1 fleet carrier or 3 fleet carriers per system. You can hard code that easily, right? You can easily hard code that if need be, just for the beta to limit the amount of people, actually put those fleet carriers in one system, if that's your concern. If your concern is about the server welfare, about how many fleet carriers exist in general, starting to question the server capabilities and being upfront with the community about these challenges and issues, in my opinion, is the way you go forward. For example, right now they are not really explaining why they are not giving. Again, their explanation really is not an explanation as far as I am concerned. It's just an excuse making rather than actually providing people with tools. One small excuse. They want to, basically their best excuse here is we want to have beta as close to the live game as possible. No, I highly doubt you've done a proper amount of varied online interaction, I'd say, stress test that only a live beta can do. As much as you can do in-house sort of a testing with stress testing, basically, as much as possible. I'm sorry, it's nowhere near compatible to what the real world is, and oftentimes many developers, be those planet-side devs back in the day or Frontier even just recently, the live beta just simply provides just uniqueness and randomness that only this many of us can provide, right? Doing these things, doing these betas and whatnot else. Now, those that are interested, beta most likely will be about a week, as they usually are. So within a week, yes, you technically can grind your way to 5 billion, but let's be honest, how many of you will actually dedicate time to grind out 5 billion? Well, to each its own how much you still need for it, but let's say you are a fresh account and what it does, you want to just go for 5 billion straight away, right? It's gonna take you pretty much the majority of that week to grind in that beta, and later your efforts within that beta is gonna be nullified because obviously that's a beta and the data from it won't transfer to the live game. So actually there was one wonderful comment, not sure who it was, so but regardless, there was this one wonderful comment that somebody put out. So let me get this straight. They want us to test the actual grind of the game in beta rather than the fleet carriers themselves. You want us to test the process of getting the fleet carrier rather than getting the fleet carrier and testing it instead. And the whole thing of, oh, you can be a visitor to the fleet carrier. You can do that anytime you want, even if you own a fleet carrier already. And guess what? A lot of people will try to do that as well. See, there are plenty of folk that are in the community there, just willing to go out and, help Frontier or the developers and development team with the beta as much as I can, and put in the issue tracker stuff and whatnot else, right? I know that there are plenty of those folk, and, well, hey, not giving these dedicated folk just with tools they need to give you the feedback. I don't know what to say, really. I mean, fucking hell, man. Okay, there's also another interesting side note about this one. Oh god, let's see. So essentially you have fleet carriers. Betas, right? So where did the idea for betas come from, right? So back in, let's see, a little while back, right? So we had this open letter from community to front-end developments, or rather the developer team, and we basically asked that we would like to see betas, right? We would like to see betas for the game, so that we could together basically make sure that at the very least the update that you're trying to put out is going to not crash the game completely or try to iron out those issues, right? That was one of our things. And developers, at this point, it feels like, oh, the community, the plebeians want us to open the game before the things are ready and give them a chance to play these things. Okay, well, nah, we're gonna give you beta, but guess what? You're gonna need to grind for it, plebs. Otherwise, we're just gonna complain about you not testing it properly. Haha, it's a win-win for us, and it's lose-lose for you. Suck on us. Well, I'm being very facetious right now, of course, but that feeling that they're literally just trying to put blame on community for not testing it or not giving us chance to test it is going to be our fault for the failure of a fleet carrier. Just scapegoating the community. Okay, I'm being very, very conspiracy theory right now. And this is most likely not the case, it's just a pure ineptitude. But the fact is, you're rather us test the grind for fleet carriers than the fleet carriers and stress test them? I mean, fucking hell. I don't know what to say, really. And Mel for the win. Nice to see you in the chats there right now today. Greetings, yes. And hey, if you want to come and chat about the fleet carriers, I guess Discord. My Discord is open today. Just kind of try to keep radio decorum if you're coming to voice your opinions. But the thing is, there are this obviously the defenders of this particular thing, and they are basically saying that, well, the best reasoning, I guess, is that no, Frontier doesn't want us, or developers don't want us to beta test where everyone has the fleet carrier and just stress the fuck out of the servers. We don't want that. They don't want us to do that. So that's why we, limit it to people who already have the cash. That's the best reasoning. And I'm sorry, no, beta is just. I mean, yeah, it seems like that excuse right here is the primary thing, really. And that's in my opinion not how you test shit. I don't know. I'm just quite confused about this statement and whatnot else. So, yeah, it's amazing. It's just lovely. All I can say is, and Schmaug, the executioner, they're gonna delay Space Lake's atmospherics through sheer ineptitude. No, thing is, whatever may come, they will not miss the new console generation. Frontier will not pass in any way the new console generation at all. They'll make sure that they have at least something ready to be released for consoles, and they will not miss that update, no matter how bad it is, unfortunately. But that's how it's gonna be for the new era update. It might be rushed, it might not be rushed, but regardless, it's gonna be on time. Trust me. So it's just because the new consoles are coming out, and that's absolutely a smart decision to do. Whether or not rushing it is a great idea, well, we're just left to see whether or not it will be. Hey, General, nice to see you.
Hello there. Yes. Where is the salt?
All over the place. All over the place. Fun times. So, will you be... So, to you folks in the voice here, right? Will you be grinding cash for... in beta, rather? Will you be grinding it?
I won't even play the fucking beta.
Oh, is that bad?
There is no fucking point to it, honestly.
But yeah, it's poor. It's very poor. I don't get their reasoning really, and their response really is just I don't know. Again, I'm taking the way Stefan wrote this as their official statement because it is an official statement right now, right? But it's just if that's how they think, then no, just no. Beta is a perfect opportunity for everyone to test it, for everyone, even the people who perhaps wouldn't ever grind for them, to test it. But are you really right now telling me that in beta, only the most dedicated people will be able to go and test these things for us, and those very small minority people who will able to buy these things are going to enjoy and test them and give us the feedback? It's gonna be very selective, it's gonna be very minimal testing essentially, and yay, competence.
I
Well,
think
TheYamiks-
in general. Oh, sorry, you go,
Go,
General.
go.
Yeah, you go first. I'm going to.
Oh,
wait for
thank you.
data.
I think I think that in general, fleet carriers
Yes.
it seems fleet carriers are in the real world going to be a very elite thing that only the credit rich are going to have, and so it might be practical in betas to have exactly the same sort of hierarchy dynamic that fleet carriers would require to function, with the whole commodities market and people using the services and whatnot.
Okay. Counter argument to that. Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, trying to have that again, yeah, they're literally trying to put forward the whole we're trying to simulate the real game aspect, right? With that whole excuse there. Okay, they're trying to do that. All right, fine. If they really want us to go and test the community markets and visiting other people's fleet carriers and so on and so forth, why just not ask for it rather than limit it? The thing is, there is this thing that they have done in the past called focused feedback. Right? They have done on the forums the whole focused feedback stuff, you know, segmenting the whole changes in from the betas and what else in different categories, and you were literally given a specific topic to test out and report on it. And developers can be, you know, having a wonderful sort of a community interaction, giving everyone ability to buy fleet carriers, give the feedback essentially on the purchase and the physics, not the physics, but the mechanics of the whole thing and how it works. And down below that, you can have the visitors' experience as well as the beta on how well it works or what is missing in the same way. At this point,
Yeah.
they're just saying, "Hey, here's a test version of how it's gonna be in live. Go enjoy grinding. Get fucked. Okay, bye."
Yeah, I honestly totally agree. It would make a lot more sense to have like 2 phases of beta, where in one phase everyone gets a fleet carrier, they figure out what's good, what's not, and then they put into place the whole hierarchy thing.
Well, you see,
Yeah.
my more salted opinion is that
Oh, go
it
for it.
might be because they want to test out some kind of orcs to credit conversion thing in the beta too.
Oh, that's
Um,
dirty.
That immediately would be a pay to win. That's very conspiracy theory, and as a matter of fact, I could almost guarantee you that developers are very much against pay to win.
Well, it brings money. And
Well,
that's-
obviously, it brings money.
that's the
Yeah,
only thing you say
they
to
do have a good track record though.
I mean, there are plenty of whales in most games, so yeah, if they continuously want to milk those people, maybe it's time for me to leave the game and maybe, you know, look at something a bit more rewarding and interesting.
Stellaris.
Can't wait to
That-
see you in
that's
Star
one.
Citizen.
Oh God, no. No, I'm gonna make fun of it. Sure, I'm gonna observe it, but yeah, yeah, General. You've got a low volume there, so need a bit
Me?
higher. Volume,
Oh,
Ghost.
oh,
Yes.
wait,
Anyways,
let me change that for you.
all right.
There
Oh,
you go.
oh,
It
General,
should be
yeah.
better.
All right. Let's see.
Sorry for crashing your stream.
No, it's absolutely wonderful to have another opinion point to bounce off at least a little bit.
There's lots of people in the chat that are voicing their opinions.
Oh yes, indeed.
Have you
Let's
not read
see.
that?
Oh, I tried to skim through many of them and so on and so forth. It's just
yeah.
kind of hard to keep having my own point going on and do a typical rant and then get another point on top. So yeah, a little help is always required. But regardless, I do my best. Let's see. What
Also,
do you do?
With the whole player
Huh?
commodity market thing, I do have to ask, who the fuck is ever going to use that?
I think that it's actually a really good idea because what's that one story from EVE Online where people had hoarded this particular commodity to make it increase in value across the entire.
But the difference between EVE and Elite is that in EVE everything is produced by the players, and in Elite it magically appears every 5 minutes or so on the commodity market.
Yeah, true.
As a former
Yeah,
EVE player, I can input on that.
Oh,
go.
Please do. No? Okay. Well, anyways,
Aw.
right.
Nice
That
input.
ended quickly. All right. There
Nice
were a
input.
few. Yeah, there were a few comments, right? So, Yamiks, get the farm and grow your own food. Yeah, pretty much, right? It's quite a bit better than grinding. Well, let's see. But really, I mean, why? Just not give everyone a chance to get a fleet carrier. Like, that's how you literally. I mean, that is the typical thing. If you want people to test, not owning them, but rather visiting the fleet carriers, just tell the community. We're not just like, oh, just because we can have a fleet carrier. I mean, we're all gonna have it, but it's not like we're not gonna listen to you. If you ask nicely, guess what? People will respond to it, obviously. Not just simply hard limit us. And just taking away tools from actual testing. Like, what the hell? Demi, thanks for subscribing on the Twitch site, and Joseph also, thank you very much. Anyways, carry on.
Your main issue there is thinking that Frontier knows what common sense is.
You see, I'm gonna say in Star Citizen, every time there's a PTU, they give you like 100 million credits, which is a lot. But Frontier is being stupid and not giving you any. That's silly.
No, I mean, okay, so here's another interesting side note about giving tools to the testers, right? There, a little while back, when, let's see, Joseph, right, looks like carriers are out of the question for me. Well, if you grind enough, I guess, or not, depends on you. But anyways, right, so let's talk about the basically what the bait is supposed to be, a good bait, I mean. So now, let's take an example from, say, Planet Side 2, my old dead horse beating thing, right? So essentially, in Planet Side 2, the game, from time to time, actually has, oh wait, no. It used to be that it was actually a perpetual test server, where basically either the newer versions and so on and so forth were put, or well, whenever time came, they actually put the test server up. It was kind of up and down from time to time. But regardless, when you log in on the test server, you make a character, and immediately you get, I think it was 10,000 certs or something like that. But essentially, you got enough stuff and testing currency and what else to actually do at the very least some basic testing, right? Without grinding and so on and so forth, obviously. And Elite Dangerous, on the other hand, I mean, okay, in test server when the betas come around and so on and so forth. If you clear your save, Elite Dangerous, spawns your ship with 300 million. 300 million used to be enough to buy every ship in the game and then some upgrades. That seemed like kind of low amount, but still enough, at least to just get the ship, right? Which is fair. Which is fair in some ways. I would ask for 500 million, but regardless, that's neither here or there. The fact is that they are giving you credits to test stuff with if you, for example, just don't want to return from the bubble or something like that. You can just delete account and start a new one, right, where things need to be tested. Developers also, in the past, have actually put a special... there was, back in the day when they tested Targoid Scouts, I think it was. They put a system in which Targoid Scouts basically spawned, right? So that you wouldn't need to go to Maya region, right? And that was also a proper way to do things.
They also put a Targoid site there, so you can go down and grind all the materials out.
That was also
giving you the materials is too easy.
Didn't in previous betas they also give you like a ton of credits?
Well, again, as I said, in betas, if you clear your save, you get a fresh account, obviously, and, well, the fresh character, if you will, and 300 million. That's been there since, I think Horizons? Yeah, I think it was since Horizons betas, the early ones. So they recognize that you need to provide your testers and players with, at least some level of capability to acquire things to test. That,
if you
yes.
If you go out handing out credits to people, would that impact the market so much that the actual purpose for fleet carriers would be just totally nullified?
Well, isn't the testing idea just to buy and sell, rather not caring what you buy and sell? Or if you really do care what people buy and sell, just tell them to buy and sell specific things?
Well,
again, focused feedback?
Yeah, although when they released carriers, didn't they mention that you would be able to sell ships on your carrier? Sell modules on your character for a carrier for outfitting. And if I was dropped in with like 5 billion credits in a new Elite Dangerous game, I would probably just head to Ray Gateway and buy all my stuff there. Oh, sorry, the other place. Yeah.
So
rather than using fleet carriers for what their intended purpose is.
Okay, so then if that's the problem, then Frontier simply disables. If they want it to be a purely test for fleet carriers, they disable all the starports, only the ones with dry docks, and that would fix it. And then people with fleet carriers.
No, the issue here is that you have this perception that any random Johnny, Bobby, and basically majority of us, if we have been given the tools to buy everything in the game through beta, we would rather do that instead of realize that beta is for testing and not just splurging out. I mean, sure, there are plenty of people that will play betas just to, finally purchase a cutter for without grinding, or finally, do a little bit of specific type of gameplay that they otherwise aren't able. But that's still testing. They are trying out something that they are either unable or unwilling to grind for in a normal game, right? And still, it's testing.
What about this? Yeah. If the person gets that in the beta with their 5 billion credits or whatever, and then like, wow, this is a really cool ship, I should grind for this in the actual game. Granted,
there's
that might
also
not
that
happen,
positive
but
thing, yeah. You discovered it. Oh, well, look at that. Cutter is a really cool ship. I want that now. Because I was given that opportunity to, check it out for myself. So there is that also to be said. But regardless, the thing is, giving the tools for testing is extremely important, obviously, for obvious reasons. But Frontier only, or, goddammit, developers have only really cared about just bare minimum and never really gone beyond that, it seems. Because remember, there was this change for engineering when we went from the old engineering to the new one, with every role now is better than the previous one, rather from the old version. Back in the day, they did the focused feedback, right? The problem I had even back then was the fact that they are not providing players with actual materials when you reset or did you get materials when you reset your account? God damn it, I keep fucking forgetting these things. But as far as I'm concerned, it was either way too little. You did?
Yeah. I
Okay,
remember
so they
that.
gave at least a little bit. So even with engineering, they recognized that at least they could give a little bit of that just so people can do a few roles rather than spend their days doing exactly the same meaningless stuff that they do in normal game that has been tested the shit out of, and rather focus feedback of that fucking one thing that they actually want the feedback for, rather presumably expect. So
Can I give praise to Star Citizen?
no.
Okay.
No.
Okay, fair enough. What's your praise then?
Well, no. With the ways that PTU works out, they give you a ton of credits, and they tell you the things that they know that are wrong, and then they basically do it a lot better, and they give you the tools to test out the new stuff in PTU.
Funny thing is, when Star Citizen recognizes how giving the tools for testing is more important and better than Elite Dangerous developers, which is honestly
Scary.
Isn't that just interesting factoid here?
And like in the PTU, when a new spaceship comes out, they'll say, okay, you can have access to this spaceship, and then you can test out the spaceship. Like,
yeah, actually in PlanetSide 2 as well, the same thing happened, right? You're either given for free, or as a matter of fact, there's even a training area where you can just simply test out whatever weapons you want and whatnot else. But regardless, in PlanetSide 2, even there, people tend to just get everything easy access to, so that they actually can give feedback and test out these things, rather than needing to grind for it and being limited to people who already have ground their faces off.
It is kind of scary to see Elite taking a big turn towards grind. I still really want to see the devs give direct feedback and actually play for themselves that grind for materials, for Guardian modules and particularly weapons. And see their reaction to grinding for fleet carriers themselves as well.
Yeah, and so there's an excuse coming of course after that, oh, but you don't need to grind the game, you can acquire these things by just playing the game. Guess what? No. 5 billion is not something that you get by just playing the game. To you, it may feel like just playing the game, the way you grind things and you don't feel the burn. But you can't deny you have to literally live in a fucking box to deny the fact that it's designed to waste your time, be repetitive as fuck, and most importantly, also not very fun in the general sense compared to, let's say, I don't know, in Elite Dangerous, fighting a Targoid right away. To just get to that fighting the Targoid right away is oftentimes, the Basilisk, Cyclops is easy to take down without engineering. I've done that myself. And in a small ship, in a normal ship. But everything above that, most people really need engineering, and grinding for that already is a bitch to do. So, with the whole fleet carrier, it just feels like developers have this massive, or rather they're just outright saying, well, hey, let them eat cake, if you know what I mean. By which I mean that they have massive disconnect between them and the gameplay and the game community that has grown around their product. They don't seem to be, or they don't seem to know what normal players often do or how they play the game. And there's obviously not one normal player. There are explorers who just do whatever they want and just live off like 2 million. It's all good. And that's right. Hey, come to the teams Discord
and-
if you wanna pitch in and all that stuff. Anyways, carry on.
The one place they look at, my friend, is the forums. That's
Forums
where
is fun.
they get all of their feedback. And you know how the forums are.
Forums is amazing.
Yes.
You just-
Yes.
Unbiased moderators.
Oh, very professional moderators as I've
Yes,
experienced in the
posts
recent
never
times, especially.
get moved to off topic if they are about legitimate criticism or anything. You
Well,
know.
there are some good mods and there are some really questionable ones. I can just say, but in any case, yeah.
and-
Carry on. We're not talking about forums in general today. That'd be whole topic for forever, right? So let's just go back to the fleet carriers and the fact that developers are not willing to provide us with the testing tools.
And you brought up a good point with the exploration. Fleet carriers for exploration. If these people want to explore in the fleet carriers, they're gonna have to, since they already have a low credit balance. Let's just say that.
Most of them do. Most of them don't bother to acquire a lot of cash. Yeah. Why would you, right?
Let's assume that. Okay, so they have to grind to 5 billion. Then they have to pay, what is it, like 10 million a week to upkeep it?
Minimum. Minimum.
Uh-huh.
Because if you want a refuel, that's another 2.5 million per week, probably.
And then there's more for all of the crew that you have on the character too.
And then
You can mine for the fuel Yamiks. You don't have to buy it. There you go.
I like the idea of hydrogen
Thanks.
3. Sorry, what was it? Was it H?
It's
no.
tritium.
It's
It's
tritium.
tritium.
Tritium. Yeah, hydrogen 3.
no, that's deuterium.
Tritium's the water compound.
Yes, I think tritium is heavy water.
Deuterium is a hydrogen with one neutron. So you have basically two in the nucleus.
Well, hey,
Anyway.
Let me
we learned
see what
something
is
about
tritium.
chemistry today. Yay.
That's actually more
Yes,
physics.
tritium is hydrogen 3.
Nice.
Deuterium hydrogen 2, I'm pretty sure.
What have I
Sorry.
done?
But anyways, back to the point.
So no, and then this explorer, low credits, grinds to 5 billion to get their fleet carrier. They get their fleet carrier. Then they have to pay the upkeep costs for a week. Then they have to mine the fuel or buy the fuel, and they might not be able to buy it outside the bubble, so they're gonna have to bring a mining ship with them exploring. Then they're
I'd
gonna
be
have
someone's mining bitch for their for their carrier any day.
Carrot.
There is
Are we
that.
playing Star Citizen?
I constantly accidentally say character. Forgive me.
And then, so basically, exploration fleet carriers, they're not going to be useful to anybody.
Okay, if we're on the topic of exploration and fleet carriers, right? The thing is, right, so a lot of, explorers, as a matter of fact, do tend to, from time to time, take also some mining gear with them, right? They just take them so that they can gather some materials rather than going to planet surfaces and whatnot else. Not a lot of them, but regardless. Some of them actually go for rings and do mining so that they can get materials for Jumponium, right? Usually it's easier just to go to a planet, but regardless, that's, fuck it. They choose to mine. There are people that do that. And yeah, the thing is, fleet carriers are self-sufficient as long as you have cash to drop into it. As soon as that ends, well, you're screwed. And in deep space, you can't do that. You don't have universal cartographics, which is my number one fucking thing that must be included. I know it changes BGS a little bit and here and there, so on and so forth. But the thing is, my friend Ascorbius, right, mentioned a wonderful roundabout solution, which seemed to be very famous, very favorite attempt at fixing things for Frontier. Just go around the issue rather than dealing with it. Regardless, he mentioned that there could be just simply a null faction, a faction that doesn't mean anything or doesn't have a home base or anything like that. It could just be dedicated for that fleet carrier's uh, fleet carriers universal cartographics BGS effect, and that basically an empty faction that doesn't mean anything and is just completely invisible for everyone. If you really want to go around it, and if you still want to, or rather want it not to control
That's
BGS.
too easy for FDev to do. What they're gonna do, if they're gonna add it in, is they're gonna make it so that you can cash them in, but it's gonna be at a lower cost, and then you have to go back to the bubble to cash it in.
Yeah, pretty much. You
Well,
you
I
do
would
have to return to the-
congratulate. I would honestly congratulate anyone that's able to make 10 mil per week off of Universal Cartographics as it is.
Earth-like
No,
planets.
you can
It's
do.
possible.
You can easily do about 20 to 30 million an hour doing road to riches. So it's not
Oh, geez,
that
I've been
hard,
doing it
but
wrong.
it's again upkeep is a whole different topic. That
On the
yeah,
other
it's
hand, though,
disgusting, yeah.
when it comes to upkeep for an exploration carrier, I said it right this time. The one thing that I was thinking about was the fact that I would absolutely sign up for like a massive group of players that all wanted to do a massive exploration thing and contribute hundreds of millions of my own credits to be able to set up our own little mini bubble, like thousands of light years away from from Sol.
I mean,
I
there are
would
plenty
definitely
of people who
contribute.
already want to do that, right? And a
Yeah.
Beagle point, as for fuck's sakes.
Yeah, and I think that might be. Yeah, I'm just circling around my original argument, which was that fleet carriers probably can't function at all the way that they were intended without the massive, massive player base that can't afford them.
Yep.
Pretty much.
I also personally think that the whole maintenance thing should be just fucking removed at the 5 billion cost plus. Like, you pay 10 billion extra combined for the extra modules for that shit. You don't need 10 million a week upkeep next to that.
Hmm.
It's a bit too much.
I look forward to seeing how the whole how you can make the different ways that you can make profits off of fleet carriers to see if the upkeep really is that
So I have to
sort of
send this to TheYamiks
minimal.
because this is what fleet carriers are right now.
Fleet carrier, let's see, Tamagotchi. Yeah, he is right. That's yeah. Hold on. This is wonderful picture. Give me a moment. This is fleet carriers, folks.
It's on your stream.
Yep. There you go. Bravo. That's literally what it's supposed to be. And the thing is, the idea there is perfect. Because, okay, 10 million or even 20 million, it's not that much for a lot of folks. And you can make that in a week. The important thing you must remember that upkeep is meant to constantly nag at you. It's meant there, even for those who have a lot of cash, to constantly remind them, play Elite Dangerous, there might be something that needs upkeeping, please play me again. And I don't need a game constantly telling me, oh, play me because you need to play it. I, for example, look at Warframe rather than Elite Dangerous and say, oh, every week I have a potential to do a really profitable mission and really interesting one with a good unique reward. Oh yeah, I'm gonna play it this week because there's a reward in it rather than a punishment. Anyway,
It's like-
Scalnet.
It's like
Before we
almost
go
a
into-
reverse login reward.
Yeah,
it is literally like that. It's reverse login reward.
See, if instead of making them decommission, then basically they're gonna be destroyed. Maybe I don't like to play games. So the way I play games is I cycle on and off games, and I go for like
you
one
and
game
many
for
others
3 months.
do that as well. Yes.
And what?
Many
basically-
people
I think
do
we
that.
all do that.
Yeah, and so what it is if they made it so that you could put your fleet carrier into storage, that would make a lot more sense.
Find
You
me a
know.
structure big enough to store a fleet carrier, though. Like
A
for
bigger
real,
fleet
they
carrier.
are about the size of a station.
Well, a
Oh,
bigger
yeah.
fleet carrier.
No, they're 1/3. I think fleet carriers will be quite a bit lower, smaller than mega ships,
they
but
can't be.
still. Yeah.
Still,
Anyways,
like-
before we
like-
go into too deep and whatnot else, I do welcome Nat's right. Those streaming. Sorry, I try to get you in, and introduce and whatnot else.
They've
as soon
never
as I can,
stopped,
but,
have they?
So there we go. Nat's right from the Twitches and so on. So your 2 cents, if you will.
But fleet carriers.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm very much in agreement with what a lot of stuff you've actually said, Yamiks. I mean, I think a Frontier are missing a trick with them, because if you think of Colonia, imagine that we could create bubbles and communities in the game all over the place with clusters of fleet carriers anywhere in the galaxy. And if you just encourage them and put them into the game in a more accessible manner, different sizes, different types, different kinds, you might just get a lot more people coming into the game, because they can think of it more like X4, where you can build stations and stuff like that, instead of, like you said, it is like a punishment. Because I play World of Warships a lot now. I haven't played Elite in any shape or form for about a year now, and it's grindy as hell, World of Warships, but at least when I log in, it goes.
It's a free-to-play game that every time you log in, you have a bonus for the first victory you get, right? And that's a positive way to reinforce players, reminding themselves, oh, if I play today for just a little bit, I'll get some XP. And that's how many games bank on people returning, giving them a positive reinforcement, positive reward for playing it, rather than constantly doing a fucking death simulator.
Yeah, and
as some of the people in chats have said.
Think about exploration. There is a way around exploration as well. Like, say, the null thing would work, where it just goes nowhere. But what if you just were able to receive sort of exploration data from anybody who docks there, and either it's cached in there and then, which is the simplest way, or when you go back to civilized space, it's cached in automatically. You get you can cache everyone's in. I know it's not necessarily going to go to the faction that they want to support, but then that's somebody, that's the price you pay for caching it in a fleet carrier, that you might be supporting the faction that player wants to support by, and it's guaranteed. Once it's docked on a fleet carrier, it's never going to get destroyed. If your ship blows up, you get shot in space while exploring, your exploration data, even though it hasn't been handed in, is still safe. So there are different ways they could use it as a model.
That's one thing that I really like on that. Both things, actually, 2 things, is I play EVE as well. The first thing you said about being able to have like miniature bubbles, that's one aspect of EVE that I really enjoy, is like the space that no one inhabits, that's just like wormhole space. You can totally build entire stations and have an entire community based where there's no NPCs out, and you actually have that ability. And part 2 is there's actually a similar system in EVE that you can place control beacons in null space. And what happens is any bounties that are accrued in that build up in this little beacon, and then the person that owns the system can go to it and collect a portion of what was basically bountied off of the NPCs. So you could almost do something like that, not just with bounties, but also, say, for example, cartographics.
So you're talking about fun and engaging gameplay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a novel concept! Imagine that.
It's an arcane concept to Frontier, I think.
Yeah, but like for example, like take the beacon, like not even just the ability to like have that small community, just the beacon. If you could have it so that, say, for example, you're doing in a squadron, right? Your squad mates that use your fleet carrier, if you're doing cartographics, you could get a percentage of that. And that would go towards paying for the carrier, or even bounties.
What a wonderful thing that you mentioned that, because guess what? Developers did list in that list of things that fleet carriers will feature. The fact that you can redeem bonds, combat bonds, and bounties on the fleet carriers, and you get a percentage of that. What a novel, interesting concept you're having right there. You can actually do that. Yeah, imagine. Yeah, you will be able to get that. And yet, universal cartographics, nope.
Yeah, no, if I honestly think it should be both. just for the simple part of like, even if it's less, even if you're getting less because technically count it as you're the between man, like you're sending it back and you're only getting a smaller percentage of what the actual thing would be if you took it back to the bubble and turned it in, right? Like, as like even just that would allow people to stay like again out in non-bubble space and have a way of not just earning money for themselves but also funding their fleet carriers, because right now I don't think, as I don't remember if it was Amateur or someone else was saying earlier, there isn't a way for explorers to really earn money in carriers like that.
Imagine taking all of that cartographics from your fleet carrier that has been gathered by all of the people that use your carrier, taking it in your own smaller jumper conda all the way back to the bubble, with that high risk of losing it all. I think that would be pretty exciting.
Oh, 100%.
Solo, not really. But okay, all right. Well, regardless, right? So we have rather two issues, right? Fleet carriers not being able to be sustainable completely in deep space. That's primarily because of the fucking upkeep, and upkeep is in general, my opinion, the worst thing about it. But there's also that can at least be fixed if you still want that constant psychological manipulation on the fleet carriers. Introduce universal cartographics. I mean, that's literally, how fucking hard is that?
I mean, it really does come down to either one of two things need to be reduced, in my opinion, is either the initial cost for buying the upgrades and stuff or the upkeep. Because like, say for example, if the cost for upkeep was the same, but it was way cheaper to initially get, I think more people would be in it. But I still think the better option would be the upkeep.
Yeah, upkeep must go, pure and simple.
Actually, I'm going to have a counter argument. I actually think there is a reason to have upkeep. Because one of the things that I first was thinking about when they mentioned upkeep was like, why would they do that? And then I remembered, like, in the initial live stream, you already were like, okay, what will we do when we have 20,000 fleet carriers in Shinrata Desert or something? And I was like, oh, so that's why they do it. It's like an organic way of culling fleet carriers from players who have stopped playing. Because at some point when you stop playing, your fleet carrier will just disappear.
I think there are better ways to do that, to be honest.
But the thing is, first things first, a punishment type gameplay has never been popular with anyone. No one likes to know that, oh hey, I stopped playing the game because let's say I want to play some other games, or I just want to, take a break and go and play other games, or maybe return one day. And upon that return, realize that most of your shit's gone. How positive will you look at the game then? And that's the same thing.
Restart.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a technical question that I don't know if you guys know yet. Is there a possibility that, for example, you could have it limited to the owner, of that it would actually exit the server after a set period of time?
That'd be easy to do.
Like, for example,
put it in dormant state, right? You can just have that.
Like, say for example, after 10 days of the owner not logging into the game, the ship just doesn't appear anymore for anyone. Like, it's off server. While they still own it and it's there, it's not taking up like server space and stuff like that, or being a nuisance in space.
Exactly.
And what about all of the people docked on the carrier?
Well, so when the ship is decommissioned, right? So developers have addressed that already. If the ship gets decommissioned, sold basically. Your
I'm
stuff
talking
will
about
be
in this
transported, right?
I'm saying in this theoretical, where after 10 days.
Well, that's what we're saying.
Your stuff essentially being teleported to the next closest star port. That's how they addressed the whole selling of stuff. And if your fleet carrier still has stuff on it, it's just transported to a nearest station. That's it.
But in theory, they could also make it so that you could leave a carrier but simply not see it on the map anymore. So that would only be an issue if you want to dock there, because you couldn't see it anymore, but you could still leave it. So it would be like a one-way thing.
was going to say, what happens in other games like Eve? Because although I agree with the fact that too many fleet carriers, it'll be full. I mean, what option is to send them to Hutton Orbital? Because nobody goes there. Fill them with mugs. But see, in all seriousness, if people have then created a community around a load of fleet carriers in their chosen place in the cosmos, and that fleet carrier is quite self-sufficiently making money because there's a hive of community of people docking, because you don't have to be in the game, and your fleet carrier can potentially, even as it stands, make money from trading, from selling bits for parts for ships, and stuff like that. So arguably, it's kind of like X4 doesn't run all the time, and that's the difference. Is that it only runs when you're in the game. You trade ships, move around when you're in the game. You've got to work out how long is it before that carrier becomes dormant and warps out of the system. I mean, there's a huge amount of space in each system, and there are what?
Oh yes,
15,000 active players in the game.
Yeah.
It could afford to have them.
Between the consoles and all that stuff, I'd say up to 20 in a good day or so. Probably.
One other question that I actually had when I was watching the stream that they had the other day was so they said, for example, you could buy ships, but you'd have to buy them in bundles or like modules or whatever, right?
Is an interesting idea there too,
but
and not a positive way.
Yeah, but that I get, like you're buying a shipment of them basically, right? Like I can kind of understand that, but what they didn't really go into, or that if I missed, is that they didn't say. They said that you could make a profit off of it, but they didn't say how much. Like
you said tariffs, so you said percentage. I think up to 100%. That is doubling the price of. Let's say you want to refuel, you set a tariff of 0 to 100% extra tax. That you put on top of it, and that's what you earn.
So the ship price is normal price, but they're charged extra from buying it from you.
So everything on fleet carrier is going to be more expensive aside from commodities, for which you can set a default price or whatever you want. So
why can't it be like NPC crew members?
So no one is going to buy from you. The end. Yes.
Pretty much. Yes. Commodities. Commodities is going to be the only.
Did they
thing
actually announce that it would be the normal base price of all of the modules?
Yep.
Honestly, commodities.
Yeah, like I was gonna say, like if it was cheaper, and then you made the percentage off that, that would be better.
Yeah, if you could compete with like Leon, you could probably turn a profit out of listing your carrier on like the forums.
And the other thing I had questioned was when you can buy like packs of things, are you still able to do that outside bubble? Like where does that come from?
Magic.
Like the resupply
space
or...
magic.
Space magic.
Magic. Immersion.
Yeah.
3D printing.
Honestly,
but
the
like,
only way I see carriers making any fucking money for anyone is if the carrier traded with NPCs.
Yeah. Because I think that's hilarious.
Okay. Here's a really interesting idea, right? A positive change for fleet carriers. So first things first, obviously get rid of the upkeep cost. Pure and simple, get the fuck that thing off. We don't need that. We don't need a punishment system for Elite Dangerous. How about this? Instead of that, to encourage people to return to Elite Dangerous, each week you have a payout of what you've earned through your fleet carrier's stuff and so on and so forth. And
take a cut.
So you take a cut and allow NPCs to trade. So technically, each week, depending on your services and placement of the fleet carrier, you would be gaining, let's say, 1 to maybe 10 million a week. And that would be a good positive reinforcement to return to Elite Dangerous, even if no one trades at your spaceship. There will be at least that reward each week that you carry on and have. It's not a lot of money, but it's at least some reward to remember to log in, instead of that same amount being a punishment every week.
Like, there's actually something very similar. I'm actually in a different game right now. I'm playing Mountain Blade, and they have basically the exact same system. Is like, you basically can create a center location or a trade hub of your own, and you have specific things that they're able to do. So, for example, mining, you'd have NPC miners be able to either sell or transport NPCs buy it and trade it out. Like, that's such a simple thing to do, and it could be a small but passive income that you could collect. So it's an actual login reward, not a punishment.
I have another question. If fleet carriers are basically like mega ships that are persistent in the universe, are they also cross-platform?
What was that?
Fleet carriers are basically like mega ships that people can tell to go where and when.
Yeah,
So
they
I
are
was thinking,
literally
they cross-platform?
mega ships. They just are mega ships.
Oh,
That's,
he
they,
said
they have
are-
been given a different name, but that's about it. They are mega ships.
He said, are they cross-platform?
Oh, cross-platform. I doubt that, because again, everything when it comes down to Elite Dangerous is not cross-platform except for BGS. So yeah, BGS is the only cross-platform thing we actually can feel within Elite, as far as I know.
One other thing I thought was actually interesting that my roommate and I were actually chatting about yesterday is if they could be destroyed by like say for example you took a fleet carrier into like a heavy Thargoid area.
Oh right, developers actually answered that the fleet carriers will not be attacked by Thargoids.
No.
Wow.
Because they are not
they're immune.
Because they are immune and they are not destructible. I mean, what did you expect from a mega ship? Honestly,
I mean, that's fair.
No mega ship ever has been attacked in Elite Dangerous. They have clearly not implemented that part of it. Oh, wait, no, there was Genosis, which essentially was a big fucking failure, and that's I guess why they didn't actually put the fleet carrier, the mega ships as being attackable. I wonder why.
Honestly,
I mean, there could be some interesting ways of doing that, though. Like, take, for example...
Sure, but will they take effort to do so?
No.
Probably not. Unfortunately, yeah. I'd like to see some effort on their part as well, and fleet carriers could be a little bit of it, but it's just so snobbishly presented with such a disconnect and disregard for the community as well as the way people play the game. It's just... It really feels like a rich person trying to say, yeah, let them eat cake.
Right now, it seems, honestly, like it's like, hey, do you have tons of ISK and we want you to empty your bank? Here's this shiny thing. Yeah. I mean, the whole fleet carrier in the general sense, before even they were announced and details were given, I already predicted it's going to be a literal money sink and credit sink and whatnot else, so that people have an excuse and developers can say that they have an excuse to put that credit in. Because it feels like developer mentality about the Elite Dangerous and how it operates is that basically making credits is the main gameplay, and basically if the credits you're making are meaningless, that means that the gameplay is bad. And so that you have to have a place to sink those credits for the credit making and playing the game has meaning. I'm sorry, but no. There are these people called explorers. They don't go out there to play your game for credits. They go out there to look at pretty things and share the screenshots and enjoy the game. There are also people like AXI, people who destroy Thargoids, because that gameplay is actually very challenging and very interesting. And not because they give or get money from it. Money you get from Thargoids is so pitiful. It doesn't often cost or repay for your losses. So, no.
It's like fighting
the gameplay is king, and gameplay is meaningful, not because how much you earn or where you have to spend it. Yeah. So, sorry, I just had a rant on me.
Oh no, dude, that's the thing, is like, that's totally fair. And I'm pretty sure most of us think that way.
Yeah, I entirely agree.
And then yeah, I mean, if we return to the whole 5 billion for beta and you know, basically, okay, so basically when it comes down to beta, right? So those that just tuned in and so on and so forth, I did a quote unquote journalism, or at least as close as it possibly can be, and asked developers about information on the beta, and they will not provide anyone with extra funds so that they can purchase fleet carriers, nor will they most likely give everyone a fleet carrier to have. So yeah, it's gonna be those that have already the cash, that small, probably below 10% minority that can,
2.8%.
cares, and will play beta. Actually, those will be the people that actually have the fleet carriers. Everyone else is gonna be passenger on their attempt to test these things. Developers claim that this is gonna be, let me find, the current plan is to have people who have funds to purchase them, to get them like they would in the game. So they want to replicate in the beta the exact game that we have right now. And I honestly, I don't think that betas are the best way to test the way the game works. No one wants to grind the dangerous beta where they will lose the funds and, well, the stuff that they get from beta when they, you know, basically close it down. No one wants to grind in fucking beta, nor will they.
That's the thing too, is they've already announced that they're going to have 2 betas anyway, so why not have the first one on the unlimited
stress
one?
test, right?
Yeah.
And the second one,
and then the second one being the
more
limited
detailed one.
Yeah.
Why not do that? That's just, it sounds like an ineptitude, really.
To me, I honestly feel like it's the time when I would say, why the fuck have a beta even then? If you are just going to...
Yeah, if only like 5% of the whole player amount can actually purchase it.
2.8% of the players.
Well, okay, 2.8% of the players can only purchase the fucking fleet carriers. Then what really was the point of testing them? To be passenger?
Because someone's going to find exploits.
It's more like a pre-launch than a beta.
Yeah, it feels like it.
What if there was already a hard limit in the game and they haven't told us, and that's why they're limiting the numbers who can play it? Because if everyone had access to one, the game would just break.
That sounds retarded. Pure and simple. I mean, the thing is...
It sounds very frontier.
Yeah, that's the thing is, there is this thing, this wonderful magic called coding and if statements, okay? They are, I know it's very weird to say, but they exist, okay? If statements. Let me just write you an if statement here.
I'm being sarcastic.
Fuck it, I'll do it in the web. So let's go with oh god.
Let him finish.
All right, here we go. I know where to write the code. Here we go. Right, so let me write if system fleet carrier count is let's see, yeah, more or equal to 4. Let's say 4 per system is allowed. Deny fleet carrier travel. There we go. Yeah, there we go. Deny fleet carrier travel. There we go. Execute that. Simple as that, right? I mean, it's very simplistic, I know. But regardless, the point is, if you check in the system that there are too many fleet carriers, don't allow there to be carriers to be traveling. Pure and simple.
There's even just like a simple way that like you could honestly do it. Just be like jump instability from too many super ships.
Exactly, yeah. Since you have the spool up time for the carriers, within those 15 minutes, I think the servers can easily check who else is going to jump where and deny the jumps. You know, like this magic called coding exists, right? If statements exist, okay?
Just have it pop up during that time. During that,
presume that they know what coding is. It's just of yours.
Yeah, just during that 15 minutes, if there's too many in there, show up system unstable from jump stability. Please choose neighboring system. Like,
Yeah.
there you
Simple
go.
as that. You have too many X-class thingamajigs in the system, or you can't jump to it like, the permit locks. Similar way.
Mhm.
Just don't allow them to be jumped there, right? Pure and simple. You have fucking 15 minutes to check that stuff in the place you're jumping to. It doesn't even usually take that much. I mean, we're not living in a non-electronic postal era, right? Where you send messages back and forth.
Evdev seems to be.
I mean, there was a lot of sarcasm in that, but I think what I was meaning was that if it was unlimited, if it was unlimited to everyone in the beta, and I would want to have a go of them, but I can understand why they limited it. Imagine if there's people like the Hammers of Slough in the game who would go, "How many fleet carriers can we jump into a system?" And have they put that line of code in? And we would be trying. I would try and jump. I would try and get as many people as I know to jump the fleet carriers into one system.
Obviously.
That's what the beta's for.
Exactly. You stress test the fuck out of it.
That's
Guess
why
what? That's
people
why
who
you
have fleet carriers will try this out very hard, I bet.
Right?
I mean, breaking the seeing if how the game can break is the whole point of the beta, isn't it?
With open betas, you just the thing is, internally you can focus test the shit out of one specific thing. That's why you actually pay for QA testers. But anyways, that's the thing. With open betas, you generally get the general gist of how people play stuff. And give them tools to test that out without the need to grind. Because guess what? Again, we have tested the Elite Dangerous credit grinds. We have tested the material grinds and every other fucking grind that there is ad nauseum on the normal game. We don't need to test that shit on the betas, I think. I don't think that they need that information anyways.
The thing is, with the advent of fleet carriers, I'm getting to the point where I think they should be renaming the game Elite Mining Simulator.
At this point, yeah.
Because that's all it is, because it's like, you need some money, go mine.
Yeah.
That's it. You want to fuel your big ship, your big fleet carrier, go and mine.
Maybe instead of launching fleet carriers, they should rebalance getting actual money.
Well,
like
it is really sad that it's the most efficient way to get money. Like, I wish that combat had more rewards at the end.
Exactly.
Combat right now is the least paying way you can get money.
And the most
fun. For some reason, the most fun, yeah.
Yeah, right?
Like,
imagine if you had... Imagine if you had an Anaconda full of 500 Void Opals, whatever. And Void Opals were made... let's have some more gameplay here. You made Void Opals illegal in some systems, and you also had some systems where they were anarchy, but there was a massive lucrative payout for taking your Void Opals there. But you had to run the gauntlet of all the nasty pirates who are going to try and take your cargo off you, and not just have to scoop it up with their 2-ton cargo holds in a fair lance, but actually get a massive payout for destroying said ship with cargo in. Because that's how they get their reward. They get their reward by destroying your ship and its Void Opals. You get your reward
that
by...
everyone would be playing in open. I wish that
I
was
know,
true. Fuck solo, fuck private, but unfortunately, devs don't want to remove those two.
And I think therein lies Elite's problem, which is killing it, is because there are so many people who want to play. A lot of people played in the original 84 game, and they want. And I've spoken to someone and said, I would leave the game if it was open only. And I said, the future of Elite is open. It has to be open.
It has to be, yeah. Otherwise, you can't properly balance things. That's the bottom line. And even when it is open and open only, and even then, it's under a question mark of how balanced would it be. So it's hard to say if it's no win or win situation, but developers are really unwilling to drastically change anything. They haven't changed anything drastically almost ever. Even the engineering change was only a half-assed one. Again, just make it rewarding rather than a complete randomness. You still have material grinding, and you have still random roll amounts, and basically random, well, fucking everything, basically.
Yeah.
It's a mess.
I've seen the magical words in chat as well of griefers and gankers get immediately mentioned when you mention open. I did a stream about a year ago. it was to prove that explorers were complaining about their paper-thin ships that explode on contact with a small space rock,
and it is unfortunate.
getting blown up. And I did a stream where I evaded tons of these gankers in a slightly uprated exploration ship that was more agile than them, had enough shielding to escape.
Yeah, but not
and could
everyone
fight.
can do that. That's the thing.
Yeah,
that's true.
I'm gonna refer back to Eve on this. If I believe anyway, if Eve or if Elite Dangerous was non-offline, you would start to see a lot more people actually working together like they do in Eve to counter those types of things. Because in Eve, there's no counter. Like, you can't turn into offline play, get around a gate camp to bring your trade goods in a freighter, and if you get caught, you're pretty much pooched.
I mean,
that's why they have that's why you pair up with people. That's why you have people to protect you while you're doing this.
I mean, that's why Blockade Runner.
The unfortunate thing about Elite is it's not very balanced. Elite is just the thing is that's why the primary thing in Elite's Open, the biggest issue really is the lack of player protection, because the only place where you're truly safe and where you don't, you are sure that you're not gonna get completely fucked is on a docking pad. Once you leave it, no matter where you are or how tight the security is or whatever, right? Even if your friends are around or whatnot else, it's just gonna be a shitfest. It's a complete open thing, and it's kind of an issue with Elite in general. Of course, there's also the fact that Elite's weapon balancing and many other balancing aspects is just non-existent. And that causes often also the results that we see. Just basically, winner of an engagement often is the one that is aggressor, and that's it. And, it's
so
hard
many
to fix
things
or
to
impossible to fix.
Well, just introduce Concord from Eve. Problem solved.
Yeah. There's two things that they could also do. Like, for example, I would suggest, if they're doing balancing, obviously go off open play. But, just have solo play as a separate character.
A lot of people would like another character on the account.
Just don't have it linked to open play. So if there's people that don't want to deal with that, I mean, I get again, I'd prefer obviously it being open, but if there's people that would not play the game if it was only open, then they could have
there are plenty of those people, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, why wouldn't you do that? Separate the game into an open only, where you have BGS and bullshit, and then you have the solo/private groups.
Exactly.
Which you can basically create your own private group and set PvE only, so you can damage other players or something. That's basically how to make private server 101 for every single game in existence.
It's just every server in any other game.
But Elite is persistent, and developers want that persistent. It doesn't feel like Elite is one concrete sort of a way it should exist. It just lacks a focus in general. Since the beginning, Elite just lacked a focus, and no one really knows what this game is supposed to be.
It would also bring some stuff out that needs to be focused. For example, if it was separate, they would actually be forced to balance out the payouts for missions and stuff instead of having players hopping in solo then online to refresh all the bounties and missions.
That doesn't work now.
Yeah, they changed
it.
No,
I know.
But yeah.
I know, but that's the thing is people were doing it for a reason, right?
Well, obviously, because, hey, we want specific missions, but unfortunately the mission boards are very limited in its coding, so they're screwed.
Fuck you.
But that's what I mean.
Basically.
It's they would need to actually focus on those types of things, including other ways of making money other than mining. And don't get me wrong, mining is what I do in Eve and Elite because I enjoy it, especially with the newer updates where it's more engaging. Now that you can actually do blowing up the actual asteroids. But I enjoy just as much jumping into combat with Thargoids or just going into combat sites. But if you're there to make money to get things, it's nowhere worth it.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot earlier was that Elite Dangerous has so many amazing things to do that are just so overwhelmingly fun. But there's only ever one thing that will actually earn you any credits or progress you through the game or give you any reward.
But, my friend, don't you understand? The money isn't everything. It's supposed to be the experience that
I
you
mean,
get along the
General.
way.
I
What
side
developers
with
care
that
for.
entirely. I explore for a reason.
The developers just want you to play the game. They don't care what the gameplay is or how interesting or engaging the gameplay is. All they flaunt is, oh, we have procedural generation. It's so big. It's so amazing. There's emerging gameplay from the players who have nothing else to do in the game.
And personal narrative.
Well, that too, right? And developers just simply want to see you play. They don't care what you do in the game. They just want to see you play, and that's why you have upkeep. That's why you have power play with a punishment system. That's why you have the fucking arcs points as well every week and whatnot else and whatnot else. Because it tries to manipulate you into playing for long, but when other games try to, employ the same sort of tactics, login rewards and whatnot else, they are at least positive, and you look at them and they are interesting to return to. Elite Dangerous, it's a punishment if you don't play.
Basically, if you want people to play your game more, maybe you should, make something to play.
So make it rewarding at the very least.
Exactly. Like, what's the point in jumping into something? What's the point in jumping into a game if you're just gonna, not get rewarded for anything you do? You're gonna find another game.
Yeah.
Like,
and we're going back to again beta and amazing tools that we're given. Oh wait, no, not given tools. We're not given any tools to test the new thing because developers want to just simply have a soft launch. What?
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, if the devs really want the whole beta test to flop, they'll watch it flop and we'll see what happens from there, I guess.
And then blame community. No, but you wanted betas. No. Why didn't you test stuff in the beta? We gave you what you asked for.
TheYamiks. It's going to be no one plays the beta, and then Frontier is surprise Pikachu face, basically.
Yeah, have they ever blamed the community about anything before?
They've used community to scapegoat a couple of things, definitely. I mean, when we did the whole open letter a few months back asking for betas, asking for communication, developers saw that as an easy way out to postpone this update even longer. And lo and behold, here we go. I mean, it might not be the full story, sure, I get that. But from the outside, that's how it at least looks.
But it seems like they don't directly, but they kind of imply.
Yeah.
Did they say they were going to delay the release of Fleet Carriers to work on gameplay and such? Or
that's what they said. Again, we released the open letter thingamajig. And developers conveniently saw it as a way to postpone it. At least that's how I see it, Oh, the community is whining about the horrible state of the September update. Oh, okay. And they want betas? Okay. And they want some, improvements in general, fixing the game. Okay, that means that we can conveniently take time and postpone for even longer the fleet carriers that have been in development already for 2.5 years.
And
let that sink in.
And then the promised gameplay fixes don't come.
Yeah, there's maybe one or two of them. There you go. Results are. How did you like that January update, folks? That was great.
Excellent. 10 out of 10.
Yep. It was great.
Yeah.
Goodbye again.
Whining.
It's just the thing is, of course, we don't know what is going inside the company and behind the scenes and so on and so forth. But the results are pure and simple. Results do speak for themselves as well. And when we don't have the communication that we asked for, so that we can understand what the fuck is going on within your company, or development team rather, then what other conclusions can we draw other than you were incompetent, you are slow, nothing's happening, you're just making excuses, and lo and behold, now with the beta, you're not even giving us the tools to fucking test shit because of, oh, we want to simulate the live experience. That's
the problem with a lot of. That's the problem with a lot of like, well, the main gripe people have with like some Kickstarter devs and stuff like that too, is like, as you said, it took 2 years. Like we've known about it for like 2 years now. Like
yeah, since yeah, go.
I don't know anything specifically about coding and stuff like that, but I do know like 3D models and stuff like that. They're in like I don't think it's like there's no way it should have taken this long. Like,
well, modeling is one thing.
have
Obviously, they
setbacks.
had already megaship models that they could have just as well used instead of the fleet carrier models that they are using right now. Like literally, that wouldn't ask a lot of them, right? Just reuse the same thing, and that's what often you do. Sometimes
Even the
to a great effect,
jump.
and other times for cheap effect.
Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong, I love the jump effect of the super ships. I'm glad they
It's a good way to reuse it, right?
Yeah. That's the thing.
It's perfect.
And
I
keeping story continuity as well with the mechanism of the jump and the different
Exactly.
types of frame shift drives that they used to have.
Yeah. So like that kind of thing I like, but like, for example, like that didn't take nearly as much time as like coming up with something new, and like for how long it took, it should be better.
And
like it should be more. I shouldn't say better. I guess it should have been more flushed out. I guess.
Yeah. But
What
even
if it is fleshed out and we just don't know yet?
Oh, just wait and see, right? And then wait some more. Wait. It's coming. It's coming. Like, you know, Star Citizen is always coming.
Don't give them more fuel.
Oh, God. Oh man, but okay, here's the thing, right? So way back in the day, I also said that I personally don't want to see fleet carriers. I don't care about them. The whole concept itself is just really very hard to balance properly, and really just kind of doesn't seem like an interesting idea in general. Just because of the super hard way, or rather super hard state you're in. Basically, either you make it useless, in which case people will question what the fuck was the point of developing them, or OP, in which case, you know, OP, more power, power creep features on Elite Dangerous, we definitely need those, right? And the balance between those two is so fucking hard to make them good, and thus far it seems developers have done decent amount of, you know, planning at least to make them not too OP. But even so, it's just, it feels like instead of those 2 years, instead of that stupid whoever, you know, is a manager at who had the fucking fleet carrier idea at Frontier, instead of that bullshit, you could have just developed, oh, I don't fucking know, a balance or a redesign of engineering, or just something that would make the game a bit more enjoyable to play. Like, oh, I don't know, a price fixing, or not fixing, but price balance for missions to make actually combat really rewarding, and trading middle of that, and exploring like it is right now on almost the bottom, right? Instead of actually having fucking combat at the very bottom. Right?
Yeah.
Just so many things you could have done for the quality of the game. As a matter of fact, No Man's Sky has proven that you can do quality of updates, quality of life updates, and people will love them. Pure and simple. Do we need new stuff? I've always said that I'd much rather have a year of just little quality of life updates and balanced passes and patches and what it else than just this garbage. I mean, this is a year of maintenance. They are literally just giving the B team, the 25-something devs, to work on Elite Dangerous while they're developing the next generation, and they're just biding time until they can release the next big thing and cash in and probably get out of Elite Dangerous in general and just forget about it and make the next game.
Yes.
And welcome, Turgeon. Greetings also.
Hello there.
So what's up?
It's Turgeon.
Yeah. I just had to pop in and say,
Yeah,
5
please
billion in a beta? You're having a laugh, ain't ya? I mean, we remember engineers
do you like
and fish.
grinding for free, or rather, do you like grinding for meaningless results that will be taken away from you after a week?
Exactly, it's leprechaun money. You know, it's going to disappear when the sun comes up. So why not just give it to you? Engineers and fish, they could do that. So why not? Do they not want people to test this or something?
No.
What's the matter with them? You want people to test it. That's what a beta's for. And then they put a 5 million ceiling on it. I don't understand the logic. Please explain it to me, Frontier.
Did you hear my argument before? I don't want to repeat it again.
No, I missed that, but go on.
I was saying before, I still think it is just the simple fact that fleet carriers won't be able to function at all without the whole 98% of people using the carriers instead of the people that are owning the carriers. So, like, it's more based around large numbers of people using other players' carriers than it is.
There is a logic to that.
The weekly upkeep is meant to be a money sink rather than
I
potential
still
reward
think
thing.
the upkeep is pretty.
But then we step into the 15% surcharge thing, don't we? Now, nobody in their right mind. When you're talking about a player base that will travel hundreds of light years to get 100 credit discount on something because they know they can buy something cheaper elsewhere, they're not going to visit player base fleet carriers that have a 15% surcharge on something, because they know they can buy it cheaper elsewhere. So players are not going to come to player carriers if things cost them more than they could buy it elsewhere.
That's what I was saying earlier. Was like have that 15% under the original. So like, for example, when you buy the ships, for example, like say it's 100 million, you would buy it as the carrier for 15% less, and it would sell at normal rate.
You would buy the ships in bundles, wouldn't you, as well?
Well, yeah, you have to buy them in bundles.
Yeah.
I think like they showed I think they bought the Type 9 and there was 5 of them or something like that.
Yeah, the whole bundling is, to me and Exegius and whoever else was during our pilot as well, and of course Ascorbius, right? We were literally watching the whole stream and thinking, you know, is it gonna be really just sold in bundles? Why do you need to literally buy bundles from which you can only, or rather want only one thing? Like, can't you just customize it, or do you really need?
Because people are going to be
cash
using your carrier.
Yeah, but the thing is this: instead of having, first of all, since the ships are coming from Space Magic to appear in your carrier for actually selling to other players, why not just limit what ships you're selling in your carrier, but not have to buy small bundles each time? Like, say for example, you can only tell. Well, exactly.
Pure and simple. Because
it would be so much better, though.
Remember, folks, that if you buy stuff on a fleet carrier and sell the stuff on the fleet carrier, I'm not sure about the bundles, whether or not you lose cash, but for modules, you know, the services, you definitely will lose money if you sell them. And the same thing with fleet carrier with the commissioning. You lose money when you sell them. And if bundles, once you buy them and decide, oh, I don't need any more of the full bundle that I bought, or it was too much that I bought. It's like with commodities. You buy, you sell, you lose money, technically in the same place, right? So it feels like it's just basically just to make you lose money because, hey, you just needed this one thing, you bought it, you got it, but from the rest of the money, well, hey, you're gonna lose some percentage of it because fuck you, you need to spend and sink cash into it.
And not to even mention like how much you're gonna actually have to sell of something to make up the actual upkeep cost of that module, because like, if you want to have the shipyard and like be able to actually sell ships, you need to have that module, which means you have to pay the upkeep every week for it. So you need to sell that many ships on the 15% increase just to be able to run the module, technically.
It again, a lot of people point out that it's not that much. 10 million or 20 million or fucking 100 million a week is not that much. You can make that easily in 1 hour of mining, no problem, right? That's true. But that's conveniently forgetting the fact that it's, you know, your brain might have not noticed it. Oh wait, no, you might have not noticed it, but your brain did. There we go, that's the one. You know, your
I'm actually
subconscious
wondering-
remembers. It will always take money off your pot a little bit, and you need to keep logging in.
Yeah.
Anyways, carry on.
Like, it's basically the between of I'm logging on and playing and earning money because I want to I'm logging in, playing and earning money because I need to and have to.
Because I need to make sure that everything's up and up. Even
Yeah.
if I have money, I just need to make sure that, you know, everything's safe. That's what they are playing at with this upkeep, rather than the price. I mean, the price itself is also a slight money drain, rather than anything else, because of course you have to. But
yeah,
it's disgusting psychology mentality there, or the way they basically abuse the psychology.
It's just negative, like, manipulation, basically.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I mean, a lot of us already said, right? Why just have a punishment system? Why not have a daily or maybe weekly login reward where you literally just get 1 to 10 million bonus? It's not a lot. It's basically like the same result from community goals, but it's free money, right? Who wouldn't log in just to get that stuff every week? Rather than having the thought in their mind that, oh, I need to make sure that, you know, my balance on the mega ship is okay. I just need to make sure, right?
Yeah.
Who likes to play a game that constantly abuses you?
Well, if you look at No Man's Sky, and you've got a freighter in No Man's Sky, you can have a little fleet of other ships attached to it, and you can send them out on missions, and they'll be making you money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just extra cash.
And why isn't there
positive
something like that with this one? This is supposed to make you... What's the point of having a fleet carrier if it's not going to make you better off than you were before you had it? And if you're only trying to sell to players, that makes no sense at all, either in law terms or in financial terms, because the players aren't going to pay you more money if they can get something cheaper. Especially NPCs are stupid. You know, they'll come and pay you more money because they're told to. Players will go and find the best deal, and if you haven't got it, they're not going to come to you. So you're going to lose money. So at the very least, you want something that makes use of your carrier's capabilities, like No Man's Sky's facility.
Okay.
What was that?
That
Right.
was
Carrying on.
terrible.
Sorry,
This
folks.
is this is what
Okay.
happens when you stream and
Yeah.
advertise your Discord and allow
Yeah,
people.
I know.
Literally, that's the
honest-
reason.
okay.
Conversation.
That's the reason I joined this was because I saw your Discord in your stream, and then I came in and was in a call with some people that were in a wing mission, and there was nothing to do there, and I thought, fuck it, I'll join YamiKs in his public live channel for some reason.
Yeah.
Okay, just to fix that real quick. Un momento.
Uh-oh.
Yoink. Yoink.
Problem solved.
Yoink. Yoink.
I'm
and-
special!
Well, imagine
What
that.
happened?
We got moved.
I just moved.
Here, anyway.
Here's the thing. This is the first time it has happened in a long time. The funny thing is, I expected it to happen the first time I, you know, basically played was in the live chat and whatnot else back in the day. I expected immediately to somebody jump in and whatnot else, because I've had that sort of dealing back in PlanetSide days. So I'm curious that it took that long to do that. Anyways, regardless, let's carry on then with fleet carriers then.
Elite Dangerous probably has a more mature audience.
Oh yeah, we're so much more
You'd like to think so.
mature. Yes,
Yes.
we're so mature that
Okay,
we're all on live support
Resets
now.
monocle, adjusts top.
No, okay. Here's a really interesting thing, right? A positive thing from back in the day, right? So I was coming from PlanetSide 2 times, right? And that's a typical free to play, free to play FPS game.
Guys back.
Right? So, but that's the thing, you know, I expected plenty of folks to just be basically the same sort of audience, you know, as PlanetSide too. You know, something like 20 somethings up to 30s being the average. And looking at my videos, that is still true. Yes, most of my videos are still being viewed by people that are basically just average, right? On that 20 to 35 zone, if you will, mostly. But once I moved to Elite Dangerous, it was very interesting that there was this shift towards a rather very, well, at least in my view, older audience when I came to Elite Dangerous. So yeah, it's an interesting how a specific type. I mean, yeah, sure, every type of game has a different type of audience, and oftentimes you can see those very different aspects between certain types. For example, I noticed that quite a lot more gals are playing Sims and something like Frontier Zone, Planet Coaster than for example, a shooter, which is a typical thing. But it was still very very interesting thing when I just came to Elite Dangerous. It offered a very sort of a different view in both also the discussions I had with folks and then also of course the general tone of the community. It wasn't bad or anything like that. There are always man babies or kids that are still more mature than those folk and so on and so forth. You can find every type of person around, but there was just that skew that was interesting. I don't know, I personally both appreciate PlanetSide communities and Elite. They're just different. Still, it was interesting. So yeah, hey, like-minded folks, I guess, and both are good. Everyone has, and the thing is, there was this wonderful change in opinions, or rather how they were expressed, while the FPS community and oftentimes they valued more just direct and immediate gameplay, so on and so forth. Elite community, on the other hand, is very patient and is, I suppose, more I suppose more patient in some ways, and a little bit more tempered when it comes down to expressing opinions. There's I'm an exception, of course. I tend to say just everything is shit and so on and so forth, at least how some people think. But yeah. Anyway, I don't know. It's just it's a little side note that
It's a good tangent.
It was. I digress, folks. Sorry. But
I mean,
yes. Go.
No, I
okay,
genuinely have nothing to say.
Right. Speaking of
okay, then I have
part,
something. We were talking about why everything is in bundles that you can sell on the fleet carriers, and there was also the point made from that only 98% of the people will be visiting and only 2% would having them. Would that be actually intentional, so that if you visit a fleet carrier, you know that they have a bundle of stuff available instead of a random selection that person just wants to have?
That's the idea of bundles. Just to give you extra crap, and so that you spend extra money on the stuff. That's literally why bundles exist. So that
but I'm more talking about if fleet carriers are indeed so much focused on the players who don't have them instead of the players who do have them, that the bundles are a way that players can have fixed expectations about what a fleet carrier should have instead of.
I'd say that's more of a byproduct of bundles rather than the primary intent of it.
Like what I had said earlier is, instead of having bundles, why not just have a specific amount of things you could select to sell? Because it gets magically poofed into your inventory anyway. Why have it limited to bundles that you have to pre-purchase that you could just sink extra money on that no one would buy, instead of saying, this ship is what my carrier sells. And then
okay, actually that's a good point there as well. And Stargazer, older people have more cash to tip for. Looking at Star Citizen, that certainly is a very true comparison, but I mean, you can find again generosity in many folk. Oftentimes actually kids who are not spoiled by the riches of the world oftentimes are very nice as well. There are also the fact that kids tend to be quite cruel to each other as well. That's again, it's just humans are humans. Really can't really generalize things. So, but anyways, you mentioned about the whole what fleet carriers would possess. Now, okay. How about trading, right? So let's say you put up a good price for your sold items as well as the commodities and so on and so forth, but there will be no real way to list them. So who's gonna go out? The problem with fleet carriers is that because they don't get to list themselves just like Inara or EDDB, who's gonna really come and purchase stuff from you if they don't really know the price? So you will have to manually go and be lucky that at that time somebody on their mega ship will actually sell stuff for a good price. And that's another issue, because you don't have the galactic price stuff like in Elite Database, like the tool that we wanted in Elite Dangerous since the beginning, Elite Database in Elite, right? It's not existent, so how can you even manage to make cash?
Question about the commodities, actually. So when they were showing off that, like, obviously you can like trade into the commodities and have like sell them from that, they also showed off that you could store your own stuff and there would be a limited inventory. Does that limited inventory also include the stuff that other people sell to your carrier? Does that get bundled together?
Yeah, from what I remember from the stream, they were like, you put out a buy order, like I want to buy 100 units of water, and then they would reserve
you offer
100
that I'm going to be buying bio-waste for 1 credit, and you can say that, oh, I'm selling this much bio-waste for 10 credits each. That's going to be the idea of it.
But what I mean is, like, on the actual carrier, when they showed it off, it had, I can't remember, I think it was like 25,000
units of cargo space, yes.
Yes. Is that, because they said you could store your own stuff, is that just your own storage?
That's
or
only
your fleet storage?
Only the fleet carrier's owner will be able to store cargo on it.
So that doesn't include the commodities that are sold to the carrier.
I think those do include.
Because that's my thing, is like, because they didn't specify. They just said it had a cargo and you could store your own stuff there as a fleet owner.
Yeah.
Because if there's a cap on how many actual commodities the carrier can carry at any one time, which, I mean, makes sense, but at the same time kind of sucks that if it's that low, if you're being basically a trade hub. Like, that's what I wasn't sure about.
Yeah, they don't exactly give you all the information in the written post, so you literally have to wait for the beta right now, because I honestly really don't know. Will that be counted as the part of the module, or will that actually be free stuff? Because, I mean, you mine stuff and then you can sell the stuff as well, so...
Well, the storage thing will be quite useful. Because if you could allocate other players an amount of slots so they could store things and they paid a small fee to retrieve it, that means players don't have to have anacondas dotted around the place at great cost to store modules. They could have, very microtransactions.
They did say only the owner can store things in it as a secondary inventory.
Yeah.
That's a shame.
Also...
Yeah. Like, you could rent out storage bays, kind of. Yeah.
Gameplay. Attract people to your station.
A small aside there. Thanks for subscribing there on Twitch. I'd really appreciate it. Anyways, carrying on. Yes.
Nice landing, by the way.
Oh, well, when you don't have shields, you kind of give a little bit effort sometimes. The thing that, sometimes Frontier seems to be lacking as well. But anyways, that's a whole different jab there. But yeah... It's again, the thing is, right, the way I see commodity markets being basically used, that everyone issues a buy order for every commodity out there in maximum quantities for 1 credit, and then sell them back for relatively lower price than markets usually, and you technically make profit out of that and so on and so forth. But it's still, when people just arrive at your stuff and want to just dispose of crap, yeah, that would make sense and that'd be pretty cool. But I don't know. It's well, again, because we don't have Elite database within Elite Dangerous, so you can't look up which station has what available from it without going to it. It's, again, the trade tools that we've been given within Elite, while nice, they're not very useful. And realistically speaking, who of you right now in the game are actually using the in-game's trade tools instead of Elite database? Like, honestly, how many of you do that?
I also wonder how corrosive
I genuinely
things would work.
experimented with it like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, so
it is the worst. I can't think of a worse way that you could do it.
I mean, EVE Online already has a better set of tools within it.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Eve does show how to properly do markets and so on and so forth, even if they are also quite lacking from time to time. So
it's been a long time since I've looked up on it, but is corrosion bombing still a thing?
Nope.
No. You can't
They
do
removed
UA
that.
bombing anymore.
Okay.
They removed that potential, which sucks.
Okay.
I loved UA bombing so much.
Because I was considering, like, if that's still in the game, I wonder how that's going to work with carriers. But okay.
Oh no.
That would be so cool.
That's something because I can't imagine they would build fleet carriers with meta alloy cargo racks for the entire
Right.
carrier.
Yeah.
Because they do that for stations now, don't they? They say canonically stations are built of meta alloys.
Yeah, because like it's well known enough that those things are trade goods that they've been adapted to do that. But I was like, if that's possible, that could definitely lead to some shenanigans that one could pull. But if they totally got rid of it, then that kind of sucks.
I don't think
Sidewinder with alloy cargo rack versus fleet carrier. That would make for an interesting.
I don't think it would be possible because you need to sell UAs to a station, but you need to actually put out a buy order from a fleet carrier to actually be able to have other people sell it to.
Would you, or can you just dump your shit wherever, just like you can with normal stations? They just won't sell it.
You can't.
You can put things up if you're in their squadron and have it set though. Right? If it's set to all, it only buys the specific buy orders, but your squadron, if you have it set to that, from what it looked like anyway, could actually just put things up in the carrier.
Really?
From what it looked like anyway, that's what I got from when they were explaining how you could just set things up with your squadron, but I could be wrong.
I always understood that as like you have the when you ask docking permission, that you then have the restriction from only people in my friends list or squadron actually get an.
Yeah, you can have it set for all squadron friends or friends in squadron.
Yeah, but that's just landing on them rather than again.
There is an argument
that is the one that will control it only. So
yeah.
Oh, okay.
There is still an argument there that these are the squadron carriers that they were planning.
They themselves already said that they wanted them to be, together with squadrons, and that's what we all, at least at first, thought. Then they come out with the announcement of the 4 types of fleet carriers, which again have been changed, and it's just a mess. Again, developers themselves don't know what the fleet carriers are supposed to be. Like literally everything is last minute. Just either somebody in the company has literally just constantly changing ideas, and that would be either the game designer or game director who is blamed for these stupid changes or constant changes, and it just frustrates everyone. And again,
that's 2 years of development.
Again, so you'd think they'd want everybody to test them in a beta to get some feedback so that they can fine tune what they want, but no, only people who already had 5 billion.
That's
in
on
the
top
game
of the
2 weeks
stupid
ago.
things in the list as well.
Oh dear!
Because we want to simulate the real game in a beta. Because we we can't
No.
predict things.
No, the point
Why?
about beta is that it's not a real game. It's
Exactly,
leprechaun
you're
money.
there
It's
to
not
test
real.
edge cases or more.
Do what you want. Yeah. No logic.
Because
And actually-
you still
But
will
we're used to
never
that now.
compare it to real
used to that.
game. When the real game comes, you have to be prepared for the worst case scenario. And guess what? Beta is a good example, or at least good time to at least try and do the stress tests and what else. Because in-house stress tests are not the same as real stress tests. Sorry.
Yeah.
Not real people.
'Cause, I
Real
mean,
people
yeah,
can be
yeah,
gits. The
Yeah.
people
We can
working in your
find
office, they're
creative
not going to be
ways
that
to
bad.
fuck your game up.
Yes, they can. Yeah. You can always
Yeah.
find a creative way
Oh.
to ruin what you've programmed.
And the other thing, to what Turgeon was saying earlier about how like players will like take the lowest price. So if it's normal, fleet carrier gets a cut, it's going to be above. No one's going to buy from it. I wonder if they did that specifically to push fleet carriers owners out of bubble space, so that people wouldn't
since
have
fleet
an
carriers
option.
are not maintainable outside of the bubble or civilized space. Unfortunately, they are literally meant for
Well-
civilized space only.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with explorers, I mean, being an explorer, I can say, they don't want to buy anything from anybody. They're not interested. Explorers are only interested in looking after their own hull in case they have a bit of an accident,
Yeah.
and finding data and then selling that data. That's all they're bothered about. And the fact that you can't sell data to fleet carriers makes them entirely useless to any explorer. So you're not going to be able to just pop out to Beagle Point in your fleet carrier and say, I'll make a killing from selling stuff to explorers, because they're not interested.
Yeah.
They'll not buy anything.
I mean, how
from
many
you. They really
explorers
don't
are
want to know.
carrying even more than, I don't know, 100 million in their bank?
Yeah, that's not what they're about. And they probably know someone in their little circle of explorer friends who has repair limpets, or they have repair limpets themselves. So they're not bothered. You take a fleet carrier out there, you're not going to make any money because no one's going to visit you.
First of all,
'Cause they
yeah, no one's
can't
gonna visit
sell
you,
their
and no
data.
one's got the money to buy shit anyway.
If they could sell their data at your fleet carrier, they might conceivably buy something while they're there, repairs
Yeah.
and stock up.
Well,
But if they can't sell data, they're just not going to bother.
I was thinking of like something along the lines of like, say for example, they had a support carrier set up for like fuel rats.
Oh, fuck yes.
Yeah.
I was so
Right?
excited to find out what the fuel rats would do with fleet carriers.
Because I didn't know this until you mentioned it earlier. I didn't know if carriers themselves could just go out into space or they had to stay near bubble. But like, if they can't leave the bubble, that kind of makes it a moot point for them, right? Like, for the most part.
It can. It's just totally impractical because there's no way to upkeep it outside of the bubble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And fuel costs, you can go right now in your account, check the codex and check how much fuel you've ever spent maximum throughout your playtime, the total thing. And for me, with 2,000 plus hours, I've spent only 1 million on fuel. That's how little the fuel costs in my whole
Remember
entire
when it
time
was
playing.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like,
yeah.
like in a lot of games that I do like this, I'm a logistics player. So like I will be in support ships. Like I've flown ships with just fuel and repair limpets just for the shits and giggles, quite literally. But like you couldn't, like there's so much potential that they're missing out by limiting.
Oh,
like,
this is a good
with that.
example. I mean, I was talking literally before I started streaming. I was talking with Ascorbius, right? And he's a very positive chap when it comes down to looking at new things. Basically, a complete contrast to yours truly, right? And and he's just also just thinking, what the hell are they doing? Frontier or the development team of Elite Dangerous just need a win right now, right? They just need something positive that would be a good hit with people. And to have an upkeep cost, to not have universal cartographics, to have 2 hours between jumps, and on top of that, having a beta in which you have to grind to get it, or not have a fleet carrier to test at all. Where's the positives there? Like, what kind of a win can you get out of that?
Someone actually said something that I'm not sure about. I don't know if you guys know. Someone said that you can, if you're in squadron or something, you can deposit credits to your carrier remotely. Is that correct?
Yes, fleet carrier will be controlled remotely from whatever place you want, and you can transfer your credits to it or from it, however you want it.
Okay.
But isn't it canon that data can't travel? Isn't it canon that data can't actually travel?
Space magic.
Space magic.
Oh, now
Cool.
you're into the grey area of telepresence, aren't you?
Yeah.
Space magic.
Oh yeah, no, I forgot about telepresence.
It's just the which space use magic.
Yes,
It
there
is.
we go.
It's
Like, this is why data missions exist, because frame shift drives are faster than light.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
but you can claim bounties across the entire galaxy, but God forbid you should ever try to sell exploration data.
Yeah, this is so.
This is just
so
torture.
nonsensical.
By the
It's just-
time you send a message home to mom, it'll be your granddaughter.
And that's only providing you're about a couple systems over, though. Note
Yeah.
that.
Yep. Fun times with elite lore, which is
if
basically
you would-
non-existent.
Yeah, if you'd allow me to go on the tangent, what happens if you frame shifted to a star system nearby and then flew manually all the way back? Will you have gone back in time?
Well, technically,
You'd
in
probably be
Supercruise,
dead.
you do move faster than light, but
Well, I mean,
no.
that's the thing with Elite's whole frameshift thing. You're not actually traveling faster than the speed of light. You're just warping space time.
Yeah,
relatively. So you're traveling in
like-
real time, but you're compressing the distance between you, innit?
Yeah,
I mean, that's why I say you don't need faster than light communications, because you could have the players act as the communication transport. So you could put data on the ships, and
because
drop into
technically,
a system, your ship transmits the data to the nav beacon, and it's updated with the current stuff because you're traveling in effect faster than light. So you don't need this telepresence faster than light communication system because players are already doing it.
The witch space isn't faster than light. It's legitimately just opening a door on one side to a different point in space, and you're just crossing that small boundary. Technically.
Oh, you're talking about opening up a small wormhole to send like Wi-Fi through it.
Well, no, that's basically what you're doing when you're jumping system to system, right? Like you're not moving faster than light all the way there.
It's like taking a USB stick to a friend's house, or back in the day, a floppy drive.
Like it's just quite literally the imagination of I'm going to punch you through a webcam.
Yeah, your ship is grabbing.
Except you can attach an
Danish
actual
also
punch
mentions
with-
Galnet, which is interesting.
Grabs the USB drive, puts it through your computer screen. Here you go.
So your ship's grabbing a chunk of space-time duvet from the bottom of the bed and pulling it up to where you are, so that you've crossed that distance without actually taking any time. That's what your ships do.
Wibbly wobbly.
That's the most
timey-wimey stuff.
beautiful analogy of what drive I've ever heard.
So by that analogy, fleet carriers could have a subspace generator that was able to open these portals and transmit exploration data back to the bubble.
Yes,
Yeah.
indeed. Exactly.
Because they're picking up
Stop them.
Fuck, that makes so much sense, actually.
Yep. But that's the thing. Like that's why it should technically be able to do that. But you know.
Well,
was a
fun
good
times, yeah. Right, I guess everything is kind of dying down, and we've been at this for almost 3 hours and all that. So I guess we could sort of put a point there for a little bit. So I guess we can do our last couple of thoughts and perhaps suggest, because guess what? I was I almost said this before, but we have the chance to convince developers, as unlikely as it seems in my own head, I mean, we can still try and suggest positive changes for fleet carriers and how we would like to. So, you know, not only under my videos or other videos and whatnot else on forums or where else, just spread the information. I mean, you know, and voice your opinion as to how you would like to see them change and what you would like to see them change. Because, well, as oftentimes we say that, well, developers are not listening or developers don't play their own game and so on and so forth. So we can try and help them in some ways. And not Ascorbius, but Exigius had the same idea that for bait, we should make our voices heard as much as loud as possible and what we would like to see. And fuck, I mean, I made the video for top 3 things that need to be changed. So hey, if you just spread that around if you want to, or some other things, some other ideas, just basically go out and make yourself being heard, or try to have at least that sort of thing. Because again, it involves discussion and just discussing everything, and then maybe out of that we might change something. So before we end, well, let's go over just a couple of things that we ourselves would like to see change. So who wants to go first? Go for it for the last.
Sure.
Word.
Honestly, I'm totally in agreement with what you said earlier. Like, if they made 3 changes, I would put in: be able to use cartographer, not have upkeep, and have the NPC trade get you income throughout the week.
Yeah, instead of on
as
upkeep,
a reward. Yeah.
There you go.
If those
a positive
3
reward
things
every week. Why not?
I'll go along with that. Yep.
Yep, I'll definitely go along with that. And I just think that fleet carriers could be so much more. Just like we've talked about with Eve, they open the door to some new forms of open gameplay, and we just need to have more positive rewards in the game for them. Like I say, there's universal cartography, taking a cut off storing things for other people. Also, you could do the ability to buy ships at a lower price, so you can be competitive. Possibly automating things. Imagine if you could fuel the thing with automated drones. You just parked and assist. There's so many things that they could do that they're not, and at the minute they're being designed as a cash thing. And one of the things I will say, and we do need to get this voice out here just to see what the consensus is that I've actually tweeted quite a lot about this, and I've met a lot of hostility from the community about my views and opinions on fleet carriers. I was quite surprised. I thought that the entry to them was too high. I thought 5 million credits was crazy, and people are just adamant. And this is, I think, a bit of a problem.
Plenty of people hate it. Yeah.
They're just adamant that they should cost that because they deserve it, because they've been in the game so long and they've ground their 7,000 hours of gameplay.
Yeah.
That's what you got to beat.
Mm-hmm.
That attitude.
Right.
Well, I mean, you know, if that was a thing, you know, the whole 5 billion thing. Well, it's my right, you know, as a prestige ship. Well, if it was a prestige ship, you shouldn't be paying any upkeep on it, should you? Because it should be decorative.
Yeah, I mean, you already have proven that you've ground the game for so long. You already paid the game for so long. Why do you want to punish your best players, or rather the more fanatical players in some ways, right?
Yeah.
Why do you want to... If developers want to punish the players that actually spend that much time in their game, what do you think they think when they look at you, the normal player who has spent maybe 100 to 500 hours or less? Right?
Like just that golden goose story all over again.
Yeah,
you're in Warframe, right? You've played hundreds of days. You log in for your 500-day reward, and it's a cool gun. It's like one of the disc launching shit. It's fun. It looks amazing. You have to buy it still, and you have to pay every time you launch the game mode.
Yeah, it's just, it's like
no, not gonna happen. Yeah,
it's just right. Like no.
Like if people are saying like it's a prestige reward, that's fine. Like it takes a while to earn that. I'm totally for that.
Right.
The price, the upfront price, I'm fine with. but I don't think you should be charging people to continue to use that prize of earning it, right?
And better yet, not only use it, but also basically decay it over time when you're not playing it.
Which it could be permanently lost.
Yeah. No, not
Right?
permanently lost, but it goes into the commissioning state, which basically sells it off, and basically you lose about 15% of the price, which is about 750 million or so every time you don't upkeep properly.
But the other thing too is like, I mean that it's lost, and in the aspect of not only is it sold, but like the progress and all the stuff you had on it is like dispersed. So it makes it so much more work to be able to say you came back to the game, right? Like you weren't feeling it, or something happened, you weren't playing the game for a while. You come back, your stuff's spread out everywhere to different space stations because like your thing got dismantled. Like they said they said ship stew. They said ship stew, but what happens about if you had cargo?
Cargo gets sold along with everything. It's part of a commodity module, so that gets sold off as well. So fun times.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, fun.
Like, if it's a time, I think I agreed. I don't remember who said it earlier about it being timed out, so it just despawns after. So it's not. It has nothing to do with the server if you're offline for a certain amount of time.
I think it'll persist as long as it takes for other people who've got stuff on it to get that stuff off. But other than that, it's out of order.
Well, yeah, there's as Scorpius put it to me a few hours ago. Frontier needs a win with this one, and this doesn't seem to be a win right now, and beta is an insult as well, it feels. So yeah, devs, come on, don't, please. I don't want to beat the dead horse, but hey, if I got to, well, I shall.
Well, if someone's got to,
Oh my.
Although it almost seems like this is more just inexperience with running betas than doing it falsely.
I mean, how betas have they run already? Like, just...
I know.
Yeah, right? By now, you should at least... I mean, you work at the game, I understand, so looking at the general gaming industry is perhaps something that not all the devs do, but at least somebody has played a game with a better beta and had a better idea. Listen to that person in the company, even if he is a QA tester. Their ideas matter too, and they are hardworking folk. Listen to them, please.
Yeah, right? Man, you're giving their jobs away to us.
Yeah, I mean, that's
part of the open beta too. So yeah,
they've snatched defeat out of the jaws of victory, says Colzad. I think he's got it right there. If they're going to run this beta like that, then yeah, that is just.
I mean, what kind of a feedback you're gonna get, right? What kind of a feedback do you expect to get? Like, really? You're gonna basically get the feedback, and that feedback's, well, basically gonna be repeated by people who don't have the stuff. So, if it's good or bad feedback, it's gonna be repeated regardless by the few folks that actually have the stuff for it. And I'm not gonna be one of them. I'm gonna have to look at what others are managing to do with those accounts that have the 5 billion. And I'm gonna have to even do that, and I hate to do that.
Let's UA bomb some fleet carriers.
like even if they're like doing it like I'm not gonna say this in a trying to put up point of view, but like for people that don't have the money that are trying to do like say video reviews and stuff on the updates and stuff like that, and like for example if you don't have enough to get it, how are you gonna properly like go over it, right?
Oh well. No, anyways, right. Yeah, well, anyways, it's gone quite long enough already. There are plenty of people still watching and all that stuff. I don't want to sort of stop when, everyone's kind of watching, but...
yeah, especially with this nice round 420 watches.
Oh, yeah.
Come on. That's pretty sweet. Oh no, more people have joined. Can 4 people please leave the live stream?
No, please.
Oh.
Oh, Dalton, you're coming in. Okay, one last question then to Dalton, who just arrived. So, your quick thoughts on the fleet carrier beta and the fact that they will not provide testing equipment for the testing people.
It sucks. I mean, you want to stress test the whole thing, and you can't do this if you don't have the player base to make use of them. So if it's only this small percentage, what's the point of the test?
But developers want to. Let me quote that. The current plan. God, somebody is trolling me. Guero Marinero, thank you for your wonderful troll message there. But 2.8% of the commanders not owning carriers or owning characters. Anyways, sorry. Developer statement about the beta is the current plan is to have people have funds to purchase them to get them like they would in the live game, so we can manage the feedback and the bugs.
That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. I mean, in the betas, you normally got all the ships, really all the ships, so that you can test them. That sounds like a cop-out to me.
You and me both. Really.
Yep.
So, yeah, they have an opportunity.
My personal theory on the whole thing is, or not theory, more hypothesis or speculation. Yeah. We will be getting 2 betas.
Oh,
my
yeah,
suspicion
obviously.
or hypothesis is that they want to find some stopgap or one way to limit the amount of people who are using fleet carriers, because they know that there is some serious breakage, maybe with instancing, and they want to limit the number of fleet carriers going around. And so they just said, okay, if we go by the 5 billion
there's
threshold,
about 6%
we are
or
limiting.
10% of maximum that people who actually can afford it right now. So
yeah.
Those 10% will be a very small percentage out of those people who will actually join the beta. So it's even less people who are going to test this stuff out. So yeah. Also, Dalton, a counter argument to that, there's issue with instancing and amount of fleet carriers and so on and so forth. Have you heard of this wonderful thing? And I know you have, called if statements in coding.
Yeah, of course.
Right. If there are too many fleet carriers in the system, don't allow them to be jumping around. Or if there are too many.
There are easily. You can do this even by lore, like some kind of security that you have enough security being able to patrol the fleet carriers. I mean, they put it into the description that fleet carriers will be patrolled. So just limit it in the lore by saying, oh, you can only jump there if you have enough personnel to patrol them or something like that. Some bullshit. I mean, the whole permit system, in my opinion, is completely broken. Why can't I just jump into a system, and if I don't have a permit, then I get shot out of the sky? No, I cannot jump into the system. This is broken in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a mess. And I see a question from Freaky Deaky Dude, right? So Yamiks, as a YouTube content creator, will you be tempted or feel obligated to grind and be able to afford and equip a fleet carrier? I have an obligation, yes. I do feel obligated to actually grind it, and it's stupid, but if I want to make a fun video, and I do want to make a fun video for you folks as a fleet carrier quote-unquote review, right, since the series is very popular, I do have a sense of sort of duty and pride in the series to make it up, at least for you folks, right, to bring you entertainment, at least in the face of this fucking atrocity. So yeah, I do have that feeling, and unfortunately, but yeah. It will make a fun bitching video, I guess. Anyways, right.
I mean,
yeah.
I will in the beta probably sell off almost all the ships I have to get over the 5 billion threshold, but only toward the end of the beta, and then I will try to find some really ridiculous bug in there, something that is super breaking.
We could all log in to open, sell all our ships, donate it to TheYamiks, and then he can
But there's one thing I've read in the patch notes, and unfortunately closed it here, or not the patch notes, the beta guidelines. Something like you can store your modules on another player's fleet carrier, but you should be able to trust them.
Oh, no. The thing is, the way fleet carrier storing, for example, you want to bring along your ships in the shipyard, right? You transport your ships there and store modules and so on and so forth. If the fleet carrier goes decommissioned, you'll basically be able to get those things back in the nearest starport, or rather, once the thing is decommissioned, all the stored things that are other player stuff, it'll be just transported to the next nearest starport. If the player, however, is a dick and brings your favorite, I don't know, ships to basically Beagle Point and transporting from that place back to the bubble is gonna cost a lot. Yeah, that's a dick move, but we'll get to that when we cross that bridge, I guess.
Although, also on
this is going to be interesting because for tomorrow I have to find some way to efficiently download the whole thing because my internet connection at home sucks. So I think I will just sneak into my university's building after dark and just use the pipe there.
We didn't hear that.
I mean, officially, we are permitted to do this. There's just this situation with a certain particle that's called COVID-19, which complicates things, but we are permitted to...
You've just demonetized the stream. Good job.
No. YouTube actually has laxed the restrictions of that stuff. And
really?
But it's
nobody heard anything.
It's still,
sorry for interrupting.
Nobody heard
information. So, regardless.
Okay.
The point is, it's already pretty much the end of the stream anyway. So, these were a couple of thoughts from folks around and so forth. So again,
was just just got home from a nice inside from the balcony. We had sun. It was nice weather.
Yeah, it was pretty nice outside actually. Anyways, right. So hopefully, folks, you enjoyed this little rant and all that stuff. Spread the information and all that if you can. Of course, I made the top 3 things that must change as a video. So if you agree with that, spread that around and make sure that developers see it and so on and so forth. And say what you will through beta. I mean, we can try and inform the developers and voice their opinions, both in positive and a negative way. Whichever one will work really, and just make yourself heard. Sort of try and give feedback to developers that you don't like this or you like this, and well, maybe we'll change something. But as it is right now, it
hopefully,
doesn't look right.
I really hope. I mean, okay, we haven't tested them yet, but some things
tomorrow
we already can tell now that they need changing. I mean,
oh yes, especially the fucking upkeep that must go. But anyways, that's beside the point. So thanks for watching and everyone for joining. Indeed, it was great to have extra folks to sort of chat around with, and indeed take a little bit time off to actually read the comments. So it's kind of hard to read both and do things. Anyways, regardless. Thank you for watching, and of course, if you like the stream and so on and so forth, give a watch for Turgeon's Starstone. Yes. Channel.
Oh well, if you want to watch my drivel,
he makes wonderful videos as well from time to time. Very talkative videos, which often are kind of hard to understand, but that's just me. I'm a prick. Anyways, and that's right on the Twitch. Sorry, streaming stuff these days less.
Yes, do watch that.
It's more warships, yes.
Yes, and well. I guess that's about it for the evening. And again, once again, thanks for watching. Subscribe on YouTube, follow on the Twitch, and hey, if you want to support the work that I do out here and whatnot else, there's a Patreon link down below and a few other wonderful links you can use. Regardless, I bid you adieu for this evening, and well, be healthy and see you around, I guess, for tomorrow's beta release. Me and Exigius and a few other folk will be basically doing it together, so we'll see how it goes. Hopefully it won't be a shitfest, but, well, let's be honest, probably will be. Anyways, prepare for that, and I'll see you then tomorrow.
Livestream.
Bye.
Bye.